Is he? Hello, hello. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome back for our math mindset reset. Y'all, we keep talking about this whole year and really just for a lifetime, right? We're talking about these small changes to make for big gains. So, this evening, we're talking about how AI is transforming the math classroom. So, first of all, it's not replacing the teachers. That's not what we said. We said it's transforming the math classroom, and we know that teachers are in the classrooms, okay? So, we are going to bust up some myths about AI and math instruction. We're also going to make sure y'all know SEL, social emotional learning, is forever close to my heart. So, we're also going to talk about how AI and SEL can reduce math anxiety because that's a real thing. And not just reduce math anxiety, but support student engagement because math disengagement has been on the rise for some years now. We're going to talk about that in an upcoming live, okay? And again, the goal is really just to highlight some practical, always wanting you to leave, right, the stream with some practical tips and tools that you can use literally the next moment, the next day. So tonight, we're going to highlight some practical tools, AI tools specifically, for not just educators, but also parents, okay? We're also going to say a couple of things about our upcoming webinar and some resources that we have going on. So here we go. Y'all, so a lot of y'all may have been hearing about AI in education, and you may be thinking, wait, again, is this supposed to replace the teachers? Or maybe you're thinking, how does AI actually help in math class, right? If either one of these is your question, then you are in the right place for sure. The reality is math education is evolving super quickly, super fast. So students are coming into classrooms with tools at their fingertips and tools that did not exist 20 years ago, did not exist 10 years ago, did not exist 5 years ago. Seriously. So if we don't shift how we're teaching math, we're going to lose the young people. And we just talked about how math disengagement has been on the rise because the shift is not happening fast enough. It's not keeping pace, basically. Yeah, just some quick data, some quick tips. Okay. So let me know if you know that 93% of adults experience some level of math anxiety. So when it's time to math, right, when an adult hears that phrase or just hears, okay, it's time to solve some kind of problem that involves math, and it could be a daily thing, a very regular part of adulthood type thing, that they experience 93% experience some type of anxiety, some level. Now, let's be clear. It didn't just happen when they hit adulthood. The reality is it happened and developed for most during elementary school. So this means again that the way that we're teaching math, how we frame it, how we question, we talked about questioning quite a bit last Sunday, and how we build confidence, you all, it has a long-term impact. And if we're building confidence. So all these things come into play as to whether or not there is any math anxiety and what the level is around it, right? So quick check-in. If this is resonating with you, please drop a fire emoji in the chat, right? Just let me know, okay, this is sounding familiar. I could definitely relate to some of this. And while you're there in the comments, y'all, what is one thing that made you anxious about math growing up? If it was that one topic, that one skill that you're saying, oh no, what is that one thing for you? Right? Somebody might say, Anika, it's a long list. Choose one. Tell me one thing. Okay. I'll be honest. You all, for me, the one thing was order of operations. My goodness, on Sally and her people, what? Okay, so first of all, let me say that it kind of tickles me that every so often, right, we see some of those posts circulating where people are are honestly arguing about the answer to an order of operations question, right? And everybody's like, because PEMDAS, please excuse my dear unsailing. Again, you all, I struggled with order of operations as a kid. It was a very big deal. I was like, I remembered the acronym, right? And at some point, teachers said, well, maybe the students aren't understanding because they're forgetting the steps. Let's let them rewrite their own sentence. None of them have Aunt Sally's, right? Kind of thing. That wasn't it. That wasn't it. For me, it was understanding that the M is not always going to go before the D, and the A is not always going to come before the S. You might divide before you multiply. You might subtract before you add sometimes, depending on the question. Once that clicked, once I was made to understand that, listen, order of operations made sense. But before that, it was like a 50-50 chance if I was going to get the whole question correct or not. Okay. So again, y'all, 93% of adults have some level of math anxiety. It didn't just start in adulthood. For most, it started doing during elementary. So again, if we're talking about, and don't be shy. Share what was your thing? What was your thing in math that you struggled with? Right? It may have given you some anxiety. Don't be shy. Let us know in the chat. So all that to say, fast forward, you all, what do you think is a topic that I'm most excited to teach young people? Order of operations, because usually it is that same one thing that I struggled with understanding, right? That sometimes you might divide before you multiply, sometimes you might subtract before you add, and making sure they understand why and how to know when, right? They're going to do the different things. You all, that's usually the one thing that the student needed to click for them as well. So there's always so much power, there's always so much learning, so much evolution and development, right, of their foundational skills in the struggle. And especially if you can relate to the struggle, let me say. So I just speak their language for it. A lot of times we talk about it through the lens of gaming. And I'll just say that. But students get it because I make sure I talk to them in their language about something I need them to make a connection with. Right. So that's the full evolution of Aunt Sally and all of her people, those people, order of operations, that just making sure that we're connecting and we're speaking the students' language as well. Because again, like one student asked me one day, I mean, well, did you have an Aunt Sally? I said, no, I have a lot of aunties, but you're right. None of them are named Sally. Okay. So we really just had to kind of give it a whole makeover and make it more relevant, make it more relevant. Okay. Somebody said tricky word problems make me anxious. Well, listen, and the reality is, so imagine that as soon as young people really start to get some of their foundational reading skills, like first, second, by third grade in all the states, when all the young people are testing, math problems are word problems. Imagine that. So you're 8, you may be set like 7, 8, 9, and your math questions are word problems. That's it. That's your whole test for math. And yes, they're trying to trick you on purpose. So this is it's it's a tough conversation sometimes to have with the young people. Like, they're trying to trick me. Yeah, they are. They want to see how strong you really are in this concept. They want to see how well you really understand and what mistakes you know to be careful about. So yeah, they are trying to trick you. So but just that conversation has its own power, right? But thank you for that, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, but we said one of the goals, besides talking about and just kind of sharing, some things that may have caused some anxiety uh, with us regarding math, we're also going to bust up some myths today, right? So we're talking about math myths versus facts. So we're focusing on AI, anxiety, and what it has to do with instruction. So we're doing basically the Math Myths live edition. We've done some carousels and other content in the past, but you're getting it live in action in person today. Here we go. So math myth number 1, AI is replacing teachers. Pause. Okay. The fact is that AI supports teachers. It doesn't replace them. An example is AI can generate instant error analysis for students. Okay, but it doesn't build relationships or provide any kind of human insight the way teachers do, especially, teachers that have gone through the certification process, going to school, all these things, right? AI can help with differentiation, meaning, okay, I might need to rewind and teach some more prerequisites, some foundational skills for students, or this student is nailing it. I want them to apply it to more real world situations, or let them get some exposure for how it's going to look in their next year, right? Their next school year. So it can help with differentiation, whether it's scaffolding, so building up, we're going back so we can build back up, or extending the concept. All right. So, no, it is not replacing teachers. Number two, myth number two, using artificial intelligence in math means students won't think critically. Y'all, like any other tool, I can't stress enough that artificial intelligence, AI, is a tool like any other tool. It's as effective as its user. So, however we use it and design it to be used and interact with, that's the level that it will be used, right? So, with that in mind, I want you to understand that AI can actually enhance critical thinking when used correctly. So here's your example, instead of giving students just an answer, AI can ask deeper questions, right? AI can even suggest multiple solution paths, right? Like just like the question, sometimes you might say, okay, you found your answer. What's one strategy to use where you can, that has a picture? What's another strategy to use where maybe we're showing addition as part of your multiplication answer? And explain your reasoning, all of this. AI can go deeper to give students, again, multiple examples, multiple exposures, and more interaction. And all of that actually creates critical thinkers, right? The more strategies, the better. Also, fun fact, did you know that there are types of questions that AI can't answer effectively? There's certain questions that AI cannot answer effectively. So for students, those are the best types of questions or problems to design, right? So if you're like, what? There are certain things that AI can't solve right away. And so that's the lens and where I should be leaning for certain types of assessments and check-ins with the students. Yes, the answer is yes and yes. So I want you to be on the lookout for our AI powered assessment toolkit. Y'all, it's going to be available at the end of this month. So basically next week. But be on the lookout because it's going to be dropping soon. So be ready. Be ready. We're really, really excited about it. All the support and help that it's going to have for really helping to streamline many things for educators, but at the same time, developing and strengthening our critical thinkers because that's needed. It's so needed. You all, myth number three, math anxiety can't be reduced with technology. Well, listen now. The fact is, artificial intelligence tools can help personalize instruction. So, giving students challenges that are just right without increasing their stress because they were going too far into the challenge area, right? It pushed them too hard. So, an example of this is a lot of the adaptive platforms, people call it. So, that's the official name, but it's different websites and resources like Khan Academy, Photomath, MAP. The MAP test is probably the most commonly used adaptive tool, but there are so many. There's Dreambox, Prodigy, Freckle. Yeah, all of these, they allow students to work at their pace, right? Without, again, increasing stress, but with reducing the fear of failure. That's the whole point. It reduces their fear of failure. So, again, myth number three, uh, math anxiety can't be reduced with technology. Yes, it sure can, especially focusing on the adaptive platforms, right, that help to personalize the instruction. So much. Again, number two, y'all, what is a math myth that you've heard before? What's a math myth that you've heard before? Please drop it in the comments. And even if you aren't sure if it's a myth or not, let's talk about it. And I'll say this, I don't know if there's so much math myths, but there's certain things that word choice is so important. So many phrases that we say, right? as students transition from one grade band to another, like from elementary to secondary, and it causes some conflict, right? Some external and some internal conflict. One quick example I think about all the time is something as simple as subtraction. So, sometimes in elementary, we might hear someone say, oh, we put the bigger number on top and we make sure, oh, we have, if we're subtracting 0 minus 7, if it's like 30 minus 7. So 0 minus 7, we can't do that. So we have to go borrow from the tens. When they get to middle school and they get introduced to integers with the negative side of the number line, it rocks their socks off because their whole everything they've known was, you can't, right? You cannot take anything from 0 when actually you can. So working on the word choice sometimes. So again, I don't know if there's so much myths that we've heard a lot from math, or if it's just the word choice gets a little tricky, causes a couple issues, right? So let us know though. If you're not sure, still share. Y'all, we're going to talk about AI in action. So just some practical tools for math classrooms and at home, of course. So how can it actually help? AI can help because it helps to build confidence. They provide, again, immediate feedback so students can self-correct in real time. There is no amount of emphasis that I feel like I can place on that would be enough for the, I guess, the reality or closest thing to a teacher being able to duplicate herself or himself so that each student basically has a teacher right there giving them immediate feedback kind of thing. So this is how it went. This is where we need to work. This is the next step. All of that in real time, immediately, that is invaluable. That's invaluable. How else can AI help? By boosting engagement, right? A lot of the AI apps are game-like. They gamify them. They have real-world applications. And again, those personalized learning paths like we talked about for the adaptive platforms. So heavy emphasis, again, y'all, on this last part. So developing students where they are on what they need versus just kind of shooting up the middle and then scaling back or scaling forward. There's no wait time to do. There's no reports that have to be run and looked at least not immediately. You will check in, right? You inspect what you expect. But at least when the student gets a certain kind of question wrong, the adaptive platform immediately adjusts, right? So there's no wait time. You don't have to wait, go through a bunch of data. That's all happening behind the scenes in real time. And then the educator side, because we want to be super clear that no, AI is not replacing teachers, that this is where the educator leverages, right, the AI, because it can become a merger where whatever they're working on in the classroom, the current classroom concept, is also like a review slash goes over prerequisites on the platform, right, to bring a better, richer practice to that particular topic by the time they hit it in the classroom. Okay. So, some other myths. Someone chimed in and said that the parent didn't like math, therefore, the child isn't expected to like math. That's a big one. There's so much to say between the parent and child relationship and their individual relationships with math, right? So the parent didn't like it, so I figure my child's not going to like it. Slash, often the parent says that consistently, like, "Ooh, I didn't like it," or "Oh, I wasn't good at." But right, especially your math journey does not have to be your young person's math journey, and usually it's not. Usually, it's not. And it's often powerful. If I wish I could often like take a picture or just run the tape, run back the tape, right? When a parent says that, and just to look and kind of cut to the child's reaction while the child's processing like the depth of it. Does that mean I'm not going to like it? Does that mean I'm not going to be good? So just like the definition of what their journey is going to be without the reality of the experiences. So that is a big one. Thank you for sharing that one. So someone says new math gets harder and harder as you progress in grade levels. So first, we can talk about this concept of new math. We touched on it a little bit, such that it's more so Math is really leaning into the how numbers numbers and relationships work right inside of the math world, and not so much the what, because there was a lot of people that knew the what but were not able to apply it effectively, and then did not recall just even like even if they understood some steps to do for certain problems, they were very confused on which steps to do when, if that makes sense, right? So even something like that comes to mind are mixed numbers and improper fractions. We know for mixed numbers, you have your whole and you have your fraction. It's like, okay, well, change it to an improper fraction. Then, right, certain learning experiences provided for people to, okay, we're going to multiply the denominator times the whole number. Then we're going to add the numerator. And then that's how I get. So just going through those very technical steps, but not necessarily understanding the concept that we have more than one whole present. How do I know how many wholes are present? Can we estimate how many wholes will be present? Right, just looking at the denominator, looking at the numerator. So a lot of those concepts were lost, where people really their learning experience again in math was the what, and not necessarily understanding the how this works, how they relate, how they connect. So thank you for that. Then also the part where someone maybe the myth, right? That, oh my gosh, this new math is getting harder and harder each year. It's just sprinkles. It's just something, it's every year of math, right? There's only four things we do in math. I say there's four things we do, and there's four areas we do it in. I promise that's it. We add, subtract, we multiply, we divide. We have number sense, which is those number relationships, like think like place value. We have geometry. We have algebraic reasoning, which people have been doing algebra since pre-K. Sometimes we hype it up, right? And then we have data. Data, that's just our graphs, our charts. So what I want to be clear in is that each year, that yes, you might learn a little bit more, but they're all doing those same four things: add, subtract, multiply, divide, slash is in those four areas, those four categories of math that we just talked about. So nothing outrageous. Sometimes we put a lot on it as the adults. We hype it up. Oh my goodness, you're going to middle school. Oh my goodness, in high school. And that adds its own layer. Right? We talked about math anxiety. Don't do that. Don't do that. They might already be feeling some kind of way. Okay, so thank you for sharing that myth in the comments. Speaking of, we talked about how AI again reduces anxiety because it removes the one shot right or wrong fear, because they can explore. It allows students to explore. It provides solutions and generates feedback where students can explore multiple ways to solve problems. And again, I can't stress enough for critical thinking that creativity is essential. It has to be a part of critical thinking, and that's essential to life, right? So it could be something as simple as maybe you're asking ChatGPT to explain the concept of fractions using pizza slices, right? Maybe you're saying, give me three real world examples of how we use percentages in real life. Maybe you're using photomath for error analysis, where it shows step by step solutions for student mistakes, for the most common mistakes people make for a certain concept. Let me call time out for a minute. Do you understand how powerful that is, though? Right? When students know what are the most common mistakes that people make, and they've had time to like analyze, talk about it, understand why it's not correct, they're less likely, they're times, so many X's, less likely to make that mistake, because we spend time talking about mistakes. And again, how often does that happen? Do we spend time talking about that? Letting them know what to avoid and why. All right, now. Also, Desmos is one of the popular online calculators. So Desmos has a graphing side, right? We use this with some of the algebra students so students can see the math concepts. You know, we're talking about graphing, we're talking about slope. Please and thank you. Let them see the slope and graph the slope. Being able to see, y'all, like, so we're supposed to do really the phases of learning math. Yes, there's a specific way that the best practices, I'll say, for learning math. So we're supposed to go through these three cycles. We're supposed to go through concrete, then representation, then abstract. Y'all, there's only three steps, and it's for shame that yes, most of the time people are skipping steps. A lot of people go straight to abstract, abstract being the word problem. So without a concrete anchor, right? Concrete is when there's manipulative, something for them to touch and do to connect. The representation might be the graph, it might be a picture, some type of drawing, right? We're talking about perimeter, making a fence. So maybe it's the drawing of a rectangular yard, right? And then we're talking about calculating the perimeter and then the word problem officially. You all, but we're jumping. There's only three steps. But think about that for a minute. There's only three steps, but each one is essential to the development of math learning. But sometimes and too often, steps are being jumped and skipped, and so it's showing up. That's how it's showing up. Okay. Yo, so let me ask, who is already using AI in some form or fashion? Maybe you're using it in your personal life, you're using it in a math classroom. You all chime in. Who is using AI already? If that's you, show yourself. Stand and be counted if that is you. If you're already using AI in some form or fashion, you can just say me, yes, I am in the comments. You all, there's so much we can do. Again, we're talking specifically about the math class though. So let's talk about it, because the other side of the coin is, how are we careful to not over rely on AI? Right? The $1 million question. Again, how do we make sure AI is a tool and not a crutch? And not a crutch, right? Because that's always maybe kind of in the back of of people's mind. Maybe it's in the forefront of some people's brain. Okay, some people say they're using it. Cool, cool. Let me say this, and we talked about this a couple lives ago. So the I guess the thought pattern, right? The thought that okay, people are going to over rely on AI kind of comes from the same mindset when people were initially against books. So this was something I learned of a few months ago. It was new to me. So Aristotle was one, either Aristotle or Socrates. I'm gonna have to double check who. I feel like it was Socrates. He was against people using books. At first, and the great philosophers, all of those guys, they just memorized things. And that's how they had all this knowledge just in their brain that they could recite and connect on command when needed. So Socrates was like, people are going to get lazy. We put all this knowledge in the book. They're not going to have to really think and memorize and recite anymore. They can just go read and look it up. He was not feeling it. He was not excited about it. So when I think of people being concerned about AI being a crutch, I think of how that conversation played out thousands of years ago, right? That look, actually, right on this side of it, we understand that it actually helps people to make more connections across the board for a lot of things, because information was readily available and at their fingertips. But still, which books you select, which books you choose to connect and relate one to another, the level of the books, the intensity, entertainment versus education, like all these things, to me, it's going to be the same type of decision to make. So it's going to be being clear and very mindful that you want to use it as a tool and not just a all things magic wand type situation, right? So if we want to pair AI with some of our math talks, we can always ask, why does this make sense? After you got your answer from AI, right? We don't have to say, okay, well, there's the answer. Okay, but why does this make sense? We have to talk it out. We're practicing our vocabulary. We're explaining our reasoning. Also, we can use AI for problem creation, not just problem solving. Y'all, have students generate their own questions with AI. Now, many of us have set in a million Bloom's taxonomy developments, right? And we know that the highest level of not just learning, but demonstration of learning is synthesis, the creation. So if students are using AI, they know enough. They know enough of the details to create a prompt that is on point, that's going to generate a reasonable question, a feasible question on the concept, then we nailed it. We did, because they have to put in so much criteria to show that they know this skill and this concept. Because again, AI is only going to give you back something that's on par with what was input. Okay? So if students again are able to create their own questions, one, they demonstrated learning. Two, maybe you get some really good questions to put on the next quiz. What? My goodness, right? Next, we still need to make sure though that we're balancing AI with hands on learning. I'm going to go back to what I said a moment ago about these three phases of math. The first one was concrete, that's the hands on learning. So that would mean manipulatives, visuals, right? And making sure that there are discussions, peer discussions, and definitely whole group class discussions, because they all still matter. Y'all will be a balance. So it's not just the all or nothing, right? It's very rarely that anything works well in an all or nothing space. Definitely not this. Definitely not AI in math instruction. It's a balance for sure. The different layers. We see how we can embed AI in some of the layers, the three phases of math, but it's not it's not taking care of one phase all by itself. So anything from base 10 blocks, right, to rubber bands, to desktops, y'all, literal desktops. So the surface of students' desks, not the computers. All of these, right, can serve as manipulatives, the hands on learning, that extra aspect. I'm saying extra, but it should be the first layer and aspect that students have when they're interacting with math. It really should be. So I have a quick challenge for you all. The next time that you're using AI, instead of asking it for an answer, I want you to try asking it for a different way to explain a concept, right? If you're asking it to help solve a problem, even if you have it like generating a budget, if you have it, well, of course, solving a problem, ask it to explain it and connect it to a different concept. So just think about, I want you, because if we do that, I want you to think about the different parallels, context, breakthroughs that can be discovered through these math talks and practice, okay? Y'all, if you want some more tips, please make sure you join the Holistic Fluency email list. Let me see. All our links are in the bio to register for the webinar, to sign up for the test anxiety bingo cards. We have a list for 10 critical thinking questions every educator should ask, and so many more. You all, please do make sure you sign up. I just dropped the link in the comments as well. So, closing us out, we want to be clear, y'all, that AI is here to stay at this point. It's here. But how we use it in education is up to us. The question is, will we use it to replace thinking or enhance it? Now, I know my vote is for the latter, but I want to say this also. I'm an 80s baby, okay? So I have some more 80s and 90s cartoons to shout out. Once before, we talked about G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe always said knowing is half the battle. And we already shut that down when we discussed memorization versus critical thinking, right? We have to do more than know. And no, it's not 50%. We're way past just knowing and memorizing. You all, regarding AI, regarding artificial intelligence, Captain Planet has a message for us. Captain Planet said the power is yours. However, we choose to engage with artificial intelligence, how deeply, what areas, if you embrace it, every aspect of the decision is your choice, okay? You hold the power. So again, make sure that you keep your head on swivel for that AI powered assessment toolkit. This is going to be released really soon, okay? Lots more good information for you. Y'all, if today's live was helpful, you can drop you can drop a rocket in the chat and share your biggest takeaway, please. We're going to be diving even deeper into AI and math instruction. Y'all, this was just an overview, I assure you. But on February 23rd, right, next Sunday, we're going to be diving even deeper into AI and math instruction, same time, but make sure you register using our bio link so you get some bonuses and some really exclusive information, I'll say. Okay. So tap the link in the bio to register. Here's also the direct link to register. And I hope to see everybody soon. Okay. Thank you so much for joining. Let us know what resonated with you the most. Y'all share this. If you know there are some math educators in your space, in your sphere, please make sure that you share this as well. Okay. Thank y'all so much for joining. Have a good evening.